back with another Orioles update. Still in 2025. My last update was in late May 2025, and at the 1/3 of the way through the season. And this is just an update on the Major League Draft, the first year player draft that I just had. As you can see, it's only about 2 weeks since my last update in calendar time. The team was 27-27 then. We're 33-31 now. But again, not a full team update here. I'll do that again in about 5 weeks out of the park time at the All-Star break, 4 to 5 weeks from now. But this will just be an update on the draft, just to, before I get into my picks, to show you who went first overall. It was this 23-year-old college senior, Omar Jimenez, who my scout definitely agreed was one of the better players in the draft, a 70 potential overall, and OSA thinks he's a 75 potential overall, which, to put that in perspective, my man Asa Lacy, the ace of my staff, is a 65 overall rating. And so, if you reach a 70, overall, you're one of the best players in the league. So pretty high ceiling for him. He is 23, so we'll see how quickly he can reach it. The one thing that I would be concerned about with him is he only has 2 pitches right now, and while the changeup looks like it could develop at 23, is he going to develop this pitch or not? Because if not, he's not a starting pitcher. So that was the first overall pick. And then one other guy towards the top of the draft that I thought was interesting, just because I like center fielders a lot. I like drafting center fielders because they're so hard to find. Conor Mcguire, a high school center fielder. He's going to develop into a really good fielder. He could develop into a really good bat. 65 potential. He would have been possibly the top of my board if I had been drafting first overall. But, of course, I didn't, because my team is pretty decent. So we're going to go look at just a few of the first picks. And so the first overall pick, I picked 27th, Dan Zimmerman. And the thing with picking 27th is you're not going to get a guy like those last two, Jimenez and Mcguire, that I just showed you, where it's like, wow, this guy could be awesome. These guys could be awesome when you're picking a 27th, but it's more like, there are more obstacles, I guess, to overcome, and kind of, this guy looks good. But so Dan Zimmerman, he's an 18-year-old catcher, apparently a catcher, high school senior. And as you can see, he's only rated 25 at catcher, which isn't a big deal because he can grow into it. But his catching ability and arm are only 45s. He's not going to develop into a good catcher. The chances are very slim. And defensively, he's a first baseman or DH, which it sucks to draft a guy when he's 18 with your first overall pick who's limited to just first base or DH, but his bat looks like it could be really good. 60 overall potential, which is solidly above average player. He's a line drive hitter, and OSA thinks even higher of him, a 65 potential. So the reason I picked him is because I thought he was the best bat available. There were other guys who maybe were more well-rounded players, but had question marks, like Zimmerman's position, where he's going to play, is a question mark. Everybody had a question mark at this point in the draft. And so I went with the guy who, with the bat, I felt like had the highest ceiling. And he also was willing to sign for well below slot. So it's several million below slot. So that allowed me to draft players who had a bonus demand over slot later in the draft. And so I was able to get pretty solid players later in the draft who had fallen a bit because of their bonus demands. Because I didn't draft Zimmerman because he was under slot, but it helped that he was under slot, and he was one of 2 or 3 guys that I was considering with this pick, so that was kind of a tiebreaker. So we'll see what comes of him. He's a long ways away. He's 18. He's probably a first base DH type, but he could be a really, really solid hitter if he pans out. We'll see. And then I'm just going to go through like my first 5-round picks maybe. And so as you can remember, I had 3 first-round picks. These next 2 picks were supplemental round picks. They were compensation picks I got for Verdugo and Marquez leaving. And so next is another high school player, Eric Bills. He's a high school pitcher that, I don't know, man, I'm pretty excited about this guy. And so my scout thinks he's a 60 overall potential ground ball pitcher, which I love, in Camden Yards. Can throw 96. OSA thinks he's a 70 potential pitcher, so even higher on him. And he could have a plus fastball, a great sinker, a great curveball. If he develops these 3 pitches and then develops his above average stuff, and his ceiling is kind of average control, average movement, if he gets anywhere near his ceiling, he's going to be a really nice pitcher. He wants the slot for his spot where I drafted him in the 36th overall in the 36 over on the draft and drafted in the first supplemental round. It was like 2 point something million, and his demand is like 5.5 million. I haven't signed him yet, but I should be able to. So that's a guy that I think fell because of his slot demand, and I was able to get him because I'd gone under slot on Zimmerman. And so then in the second supplemental pick I got at the end of the first round, I got Ben Schilt, who is a college pitcher, 22 years old, another ground baller, extreme ground baller, and he can throw up to 98. And so he's a 55 potential, and OSA agrees he's a 55 potential. It looks like he could have 4 above average pitches, good movement, good stuff, average control. So yeah, I went with a college arm here, and he was also over slot by about $500,000. No problem signing him either. I should be able to sign all these guys. And so then Zimmerman and then Bills and Schilt were those were the Verdugo and Marquez compensation picks. So it takes the sting of giving up those guys a bit. So then Gene Riddle I drafted towards the end of the second round, 66th overall. And like I said earlier, I love guys who can play center field. He's got borderline elite range. He's got a great arm, and so he's going to be a good fielding center fielder. He's going to be able to play all 3 outfield positions. He's got a great work ethic. He's intelligent, which means these guys are more likely to fulfill their potential. And he's also going to be able to develop first and second base pretty well. He's not going to be able to play shortstop or third because he doesn't have the range or arm in the infield. His outfield range is great, but his infield range is a 55, which would be fine for third, but his arm isn't good enough. And 55 range is borderline for shortstop, and with a below average arm, he's not going to be able to play there, but should be a plus defender in the outfield. And so he's not going to hit for any power, which is fine. His eye is really questionable, obviously, but hoping that with a good avoid K's rating, if he can develop that, and if he can develop his contact, that'll outweigh his poor eye. And so maybe he can be a guy who plays a Gold Glove center field and hits in the bottom third of the lineup. Maybe if he develops these on-base skills, he could bat higher in the lineup, but with this bad discipline, I'm not sure that's going to be the case, but we'll see. He's 18 years old. I love drafting center fielders. So pretty happy with him. And then third round, I picked Jonathan Groves. This is a college junior, came out of Eastern Illinois. He's a lefty, another extreme ground baller. My scout thinks he's a 50 potential, which is 50 is a major league average player. If I can get a major league average player out of my third round pick every year, I will take that. And 55, so OSA is a little higher on him. And back to my scout, thinks he's going to could max out with 4 above average pitches, pretty good movement, and stuff and control could be fine. So we'll see what happens with him. I'll take this kind of guy with a third round pick. I think that's pretty solid get. And then look at a couple more picks here. Jerry Ferris is basically like Riddle, that center fielder 2 picks ahead of you. Not quite as good in the field, but he's going to be able to play all 3 outfield positions. And he's got strong work ethic, which, again, I like a lot. Guys are more likely to reach near the ceiling of their potential if they have good work ethic or intelligence. So, and I don't think he can play infield positions. No, he's not going to be able to play any infield. I mean, maybe first base, but everybody can play there. And so same story here with Riddle, pretty much. He's got really good avoid Ks, really good contact, good gap power. He's not going to hit for any home runs. And his discipline could be his downfall if he doesn't develop it. So we'll see what happens there with Jerry Ferris. And then with the 5th round, I went way under slot because I had spent so much on a bunch of these guys, Billis, Schilt, and then Zimmerman was under slot, and the rest of these guys were all around or a little over slot. So, but there was a guy here that I liked a lot who the slot was several $100,000, and he only wanted and I actually already signed him for $40,000. It's a lefty college reliever out of Oral Roberts. He's 22, and so he's going to only be a reliever. He's only got 2 pitches. He's got the stamina to start, but unless he were to somehow miraculously develop a third pitch, which doesn't happen in this game a lot. I wish there were a way to try to do it, to coach that, but there's just not. It would probably be too exploitable if it was an option. So 75 potential, my scout thinks, and OSA, the scouting agency, thinks he's an 80 potential reliever, which means both my scout and the OSA scouting agency think this guy could turn into an elite reliever. And he's 22, so he could be ready within a year or two. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how he pans out. But already has an above average cutter and an average 50 slider with the potential to go to 65. I mean, the cutter could be one of the best pitches in baseball, and the slider could be a well above average pitch too. And his stuff could be among the best in baseball if he develops with just average control and just below average movement. This guy looks like he could be an awesome reliever. So there wasn't a lot there in the 5th round that I was too excited about, and so because he was so far under slot, and I don't love drafting relievers early in the draft, but this guy looks like he could be great, and so I didn't mind drafting him. So I won't go into the rest of the picks. I'm sure some of the other guys, depending on how many more years I play out this franchise, I think other guys in the draft could come up. But those are the first 5 picks, so that's all for now. And I'll be back with an update around the All-Star break, probably, hopefully with some winning going on from the Orioles.